Hey guys, I'm here working on a 97 Volkswagen Jetta TDI, and I got a check engine light for ignition timing, injection timing. They're not able to control it. So the first thing I did was check the timing belt, made sure it was still tight and everything was in line here. Used the Volkswagen specialty tools of a 11mm socket wedged there in the injection pump, and a couple gift cards and a metal bracket there locking the camshaft in time. And after that, look down at a hole here. I don't know if you'll be able to see very well. I'm gonna try for it. And was able to see that the crank is in time. So, good news is that the engine is still in time. Timing belt's good. Valves haven't met the pistons. Everybody's still happy. Bad news is I still got to figure out what's wrong. So, this plug right here goes down to, well, the injection pump, but more specifically, the valve's N108 valve, I think, and it controls the cold start and injection timing. So, looking up the specifications online, it says that it's supposed to be less than 16 ohms of resistance measured across the two pins, which are the two bottom pins. Well, that's terrible. I'm trying here. The two bottom pins and that 3-pin connector right there. So, I got my cheap meter here. Try to get these wedged up there while still holding the phone. This is working out terribly. This is terrible. Alright, well, here's what I'm going to do then. I'm just going to set the meter down. And I'm going to prop you guys up right there. Maybe? Can we do that? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right on it. All right. Test the resistance across both of those pins. It's supposed to be less than 16 ohms. And we are not there. 54.2, 54.3. And just to make sure meter's reading good enough. Yeah, so we're about over triple what we're supposed to be. So, lucky for me, I have a spare engine, and I'm going to go check what that valve is. And hopefully it's a good valve, and I can stick it on here. Alright, over here at the spare engine, same plug, same meter. We're gonna go ahead and test the resistance across this one, and I will put you guys back down here, and you'll see what I get. Alright, so we got 13.9 on that one, which means that is going to be a good valve. Now that I can move around a little better, I can show you a little bit better what we're dealing with. It goes from that plug there down, and there's the valve. Back behind that tensioner, bolts onto the bottom of the pump. There's one bolt. Let's see. Yeah, there's one bolt that you can see there, and then there's one on the other side. Unfortunately, it's blocked by that casting on the block. So I'm going to have to pull the injection pump off of both engines to be able to get that valve off. And that's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm not going to hold you guys up while I do that. So I'll come back around once I got something better figured out for you. Alright guys, here's the valve that I took out of the spare engine that I had. It's that 3-wire plug, and it goes into the back of the engine, or the back of the pump, kind of like that, and then this wraps around the top. I did find a way to get it off of there without taking the pump completely off of the engine. I will say though that it is not really the appropriate way to do it, and I definitely don't recommend doing it this way. But here we are, and I'm doing it anyways. So what I did is, of course, I took the injector lines off. I took the 3 pump mounting bolts loose on the front of the pump all the way out, the bolt there, and then the 2 nuts that you take off through the front. Took those completely off. I did leave the belt on, left the engine in time, and then I took off the mounting bracket on the back, which I will show you there. I took off that bracket right there that I'm touching now. Can't see it. You can't see it. All right. This bracket right here, the bolts down there on that bolt right there, I took that off because that blocks your view to the solenoid, which is at the end, or the valve, which is the end of these wires that run underneath. So I took all that stuff loose, and then I kind of knocked the pump loose a little bit there, because it'll be tight in there even with the bolts off. Well, okay, let me back up. Before I did that, I put a little mark in the pump and a chisel mark there on the bracket. Not really an accurate way to time it, but it'll get me back in the ballpark, along with I scribed around the outside, and then just the corrosion marks. You'll be able to see where the pump was. I'm still going to have to time the pump with vagcom, but I'd have to do that anyways if I took the pump off, so oh well. But I kind of knocked it just a little bit loose there, and then I pried on the back of the pump just enough to get it to move that 2 millimeters out of the way that I needed it to, and then I was able to get into the back of it with a 1/4-inch ratchet. I was able to get into the back of it with a 1/4-inch ratchet and an impact hammer. Impact driver, not hammer. This is the rig I used right there. Got it in the back there, smack out with a hammer, and it broke it loose. And then once it was loose, I was just able to get the nut right out like that. Not the appropriate way to do it, but that's the way I'm going to do it, and it worked. So I'm now going to do the same on this engine, and we'll see how it turns out. When I get the pump all loose and kind of prying on it, I'll come back around and show you guys a little bit more in detail what I've done. Well, you see how that worked out. So I guess I'd go ahead and recommend you just pull the pump anyways, because if it turns out like this one did, the pump's going to come off anyhow. Couple reasons this one didn't work out the way the other one did. On the other engine, when I took the mounting bolts loose, the pump kind of stayed stuck to the mounting plate right there. So I had something that I could twist my ratchet against to get the valve out of there. On this one, as soon as I took those bolts loose, the pump come loose, and it just was flopping around anyways. So there's one complication. Another one, I was not able to swing a hammer against the impact driver because I was hitting the power steering reservoir there, along with various harnesses and stuff that's just not there on the other engine. So that was another issue. And the third being the screws that were holding the valve in there were corroded into place. So I had to get a better angle on them. And of course I had the pump out by the time I pulled this valve out. But it was corroded in fairly heavily to the point where I bent the mounting flange getting it out. Unlike the other one, that I was able to just twist it a little bit and it slid pretty much right out. So the pump's off. I guess knowing what I know now, I would just recommend you go ahead and pull the pump anyways. Which means, of course, you're going to have to reset your timing belt or do a timing belt change if it's time. And that's that. And that being said, I am going to the bar and I will put this back together. All right, it is tomorrow. I had a good night at the bar. Now I'm ready to get this thing back together. Here's the good valve. I cleaned it up just a little bit. Just using a Scotch-Brite pad. And I also cleaned the inside bore of there just a little bit. And it was pretty careful to wipe out all the debris or whatever you'd call it. Now I'm going to get that brand new pre-owned valve in the pump, get it all wired up, and get the pump mounted back in the spot that it was. And then I'm going to reset the timing belt. I know a lot of people say, oh, don't reuse the timing belt or tensioner, but it's all still good. And that's just what's going to happen for now. So I will come back around when I have some sort of an update for you. Alright, well, I got the new valve mounted in there. As far as torque spec on them two bolts, I just snugged them up. It's a really small screw, and it goes into aluminum housing, and it doesn't really hold back that much pressure. So I figured there was no need to really torque on it. Just used a 1/4-inch ratchet and a little T30 socket for that. Speaking about pressure, while I had the pump off, I went ahead and took the case pressure relief valve out. You just use a 10mm wrench flat on it, and it comes out fairly easy. And what it is a little check ball in there. And with the valve being as corroded as it was, I wanted to make sure that the check ball moved freely and didn't have any corrosion or anything on it, which it did. There was no issue there. So I just put that back in, and again, you just kind of snug it up, and we should be good to go. I kind of kinked this line a little bit, messing around with the pump, so I'm going to replace this fuel line while I'm working on it. So, but yeah, I'm going to get the pump mounted back up and time it up best I can by eyeball, and get the belt retimed, and then I will hook it up to the computer, and we will reset the actual pump timing a little bit more precise than just looking at it. So that's where we are. All right, the timing belt is back on. and tensioned up as properly as you can. I didn't really do this proper, so I didn't want to get too in depth with the process I used on that. I will make another video at some point showing the timing belt installation, but I will use a new belt, new tensioners, and go through all the torque specs. And you know, when I make that video, I want it to be proper for you guys, not kind of half-assed like I did right now. Now I got a couple other maintenance items I need to do. I need to, as you can see, this is leaking. It's cracked right there, and it's leaking down. So I do have another one of those to put on. I got from CascadeGerman.com. Pretty good place to get parts. And then I just got a couple other finishing up items to do here, and I will fire this thing up and see how it runs. Hopefully it runs a lot better. I know I didn't take a video of it running before, but it was pretty bad off. So I will get back with you when I get back with you. Well, there we have it. It runs. Still working air out of the fuel system. You do remember we pretty much drained the whole pump and lines and everything. So I'm not going to let it run for too long because it doesn't have much coolant in it right now. And I know I didn't spend much time on reassembly of it, but I figure I spent a decent amount of time on disassembly, and you just follow those steps backwards. This is not a job that I would recommend to somebody who has never done a timing belt before. This is not a job that I would recommend to basically a beginner in any sense. You don't have to be an expert to do this job, but you know, you do have to take some sort of precautions on retiming the engine, keeping the inside of the fuel system clean, you know, various things like that. It is definitely doable. There's not much instruction out there on rebuilding these pumps or doing maintenance to these pumps, which is why I made this video. So if you do have a light come on for injection timing, shorted open or shorted the battery or anything like that, if you know, you follow those diagnostic steps that I said early on, check your base timing and then check your resistance across the two wires there, and if those two wires are good, then you go to the ECM and you check the resistance across the entire circuit, and if the resistance is good through the whole circuit, then, well, I don't know what the issue would be at that point, but usually you find a fault with either the valve or you get a broken wire somewhere. So that is that's that. I'm fill this thing up with coolant and go drive around for a little bit. So see you next time.